All right. Episode 18 of the Harold Katz Podcast. We have reached high. Glad you could join us to keep it poppers. Owen Glickman, and of course, Coach, who never needs an introduction. Coach, who do we have on today with you?
This should be fun for you guys, I think. We have my former boss at Goucher College, who is now the athletic director at Chatham University in Pittsburgh, I think.
Yep.
Right, Coach?
Yep, it's in Pittsburgh.
So all the skeletons are buried in this closet, fellas. if somebody knows how bad it was, this is the man right here. Oh, Coach, can we start with Coach Boots? Can we do that? Could you tell everybody before we get to the AD stuff, because I'm really interested in that. But let's go back to Coach Boots when you first got your, what was it, like a student assistant or a grad assistant or something?
Yeah, I was a graduate assistant at University of South Dakota with Dave Boots, and he did a great job at the University of South Dakota. They hadn't been in the NCAA tournament in, I don't know, one of those things, 20, 30 years. And I went there with his staff, and he took the team in the second year. They went to the NCAA tournament, and that's when they were Division II, and they were the University of South Dakota. And that was like probably the best Division II conference in the country. That was North Dakota State. Those schools are all playing Division I now. But, that was quite a learning experience. And one of the things I really learned there, it's you X and O this thing to death, but so much about coaching is convincing players that they have to do things. And I really learned that there. His staff, he had come from a school in Minnesota, a smaller school. He took the job. So the staff was together, and I was new to the staff. And we used to play this matchup zone. And I still remembered it. And he was doing something on the board, and he was drawing it up. And he said, if the offense does this, we do this. If the offense does this, we do this. Well, then I go, well, what happens if the offense do that? He goes, we're going to do that. And what about they do? We're going to do this. And I'm looking, and I keep thinking, he's got 6 guys on the defensive end on that board. And the other assistants see it, but they were like, they're not going to say a word. And then finally, one of them pulls me to the side. He goes, it's his matchup zone. And the way he looks at it is if the other team scores, the players screwed up. And the players have learned that, so they just play so damn hard so nobody scores on them. That's why we're a great defensive team. It had nothing to do with the X's and O's. They had just convinced them that this is supposed to work. And I was like, okay, that's a learning experience.
So hold on. So how many years were you there?
2 years. I was there for 2 years with him.
2 years. Because I seem to recall over about 15 to 20 years, we got Coach Boots lessons all the time. Like that was, Coach Boots did like this. You're lucky you ain't working for him. How many times that come out of your mouth?
Coach you ain't working for him? Yeah, he was, most coaches are pretty outgoing on the recruiting trail, and they're talking. And we had an assistant, and I won't name him, who, in my opinion, didn't know a thing about basketball, but was a great recruiter, just a great recruiter. And him and Boots had been together for years. And the guy would tell us something about basketball, and I was like, man, that's just ridiculous. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Other assistants would tell me, he's not here to coach basketball. He's here to recruit. Okay. Well, then I learned this one day Coach Boots, we actually kept the recruits away from Coach Boots till the last second. We just never talked to him. And they were like, because he was not outgoing at all. And then one day, I don't know how I got into it, but I had to drive with him 4 hours to go see a recruit in South Dakota. And I swear for 4 hours, he didn't say one word to me other than at one point he goes, turn left. And we have to turn left. And if you've been in South Dakota, it's just outward. We get to the recruit's house, and he turns to me and he says, now we're going to have to really smooth and charm these guys. And all I could think of was, man, we just lost this recruit. I know it. Like, go in his house. We're in there. The parents are just wonderfully nice. The kid is just talking. And Coach Boots is looking around like, this is the most frustrating thing. I just want to get out of here. Finally, he tells the kid, we're going to win games, and you can come play for us and win games, or you can go somewhere else and lose. That was the total pitch of the recruiting thing. There was nothing else to it. And unbelievably, the kid signed with us and turned out to be a great player. But then that was also 4 hours back where I didn't say one word to him. And later, Coach Boots goes, had a great trip with Leonard. Assistants were, really? I go, he talked to me twice in 8 hours. It's just what it was.
He said, turn left, turn right on the way back. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he came to us. I don't even remember when it was. I want to say 2003 or something. Remember, he came to Baltimore. Hey, Coach, how are you? Heard a lot about you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
dude, this is the dude you were scared of right here.
Yep.
Dude, don't put
we
5
saw him in
cents.
the Final Four. We saw him somewhere. Must have said 3 words to us. I mean,
right.
The other boot story I can tell you is we used to play doubleheaders against like North Dakota State, and all those schools. One day we just playing really poorly, and the guys want to have a team meeting, and guys said, "Hey, coach's offense is just terrible. Somebody needs to tell him." And I, like the idiot that I was at that point, went and knocked on his door at a hotel room, and I said, "Coach, can I talk to you?" He opens his hotel room about this much. I kid you not. Doesn't even open the door for me. Doesn't invite me in. He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "The coach, the guys are a little concerned about the offense. They don't feel like it's rowing. It's moving well. They want to talk about it."
Right.
He goes to the door and he goes, "Just tell him to put the ball in the basket." And he closes the door. That was the end of it.
That's it. Yeah. That's stuff. We have had that conversation plenty of times.
That was the end of it. So
I think our conversations had a few more adjectives in them, describing the ball as a certain active ball. But okay, so then this is the cool part. Then you go to Goucher to interview, and you get the job. It was kind of simple. You were going to get it, or what?
I got the job, and let me backtrack. You're gonna love this South Dakota stuff. If you guys like basketball, I'm gonna give you a story you guys are gonna love. So we're at South Dakota, and we've got this kid from Bloomington, Indiana. And again, remember, I'm a young assistant. What I didn't know was that this kid from Bloomington, Indiana, was next door neighbors to Bob Knight. Okay, and the kid he's struggling in South Dakota. And he's talking about going home. He's been out drinking too much. He's been doing that stuff. All of a sudden, now, South Dakota's a school of about 10,000. I get somebody from the basketball staff running to come see me. They go, "There's a phone call for you. You got to come right now." I mean, we're literally talking all the way across campus. And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm walking. They go, "No, you got to come." I'm like, "Who is it?" He goes, "It's Bob Knight. Bob Knight wants you on the phone."
Coach, there's no cell phones, no text messages.
Yeah, no cell phones, none of this. Literally, we're running across campus.
So Coach wants you on the phone.
And running across campus, he introduced himself, said, "This is Bob Knight." I'm like, "Is this a joke? Is this that?" He goes, "You got so-and-so. He's my next door neighbor. I hear he's in trouble. Go get him. I want to talk to him." So now I'm running all over campus looking to get this basketball player. Bring him back there. Knight starts chewing him out. Like I can hear it. And then he goes, "Put Coach on the phone." And then I get on the phone. He goes, "You're responsible for him from now on. Anytime I need to talk to him, anytime there's going to be a problem, I'm calling you." And I'm like, how did I get involved in this? And the administrative assistant is like, "You were the only one I could think of." And that's how I got to meet Bob Knight. And for the next 2 years, I would get a call every 4 months from Bob Knight, who used to be like, "How's he doing?" And I used to have to give him a report on how he was doing.
Right. So welcome to college basketball.
Welcome to college basketball. That was my first job. Those are stories of my first job.
Right. So here's the thing. Goucher is a girls' school. It's only women, right?
A women's school.
My bad, Coach.
I thought you would be much more, after all those years at Chatham, that you would have learned that.
My bad, Coach. I'm sorry. It's a woman's school.
Yes.
So they say, "Hey, we want to start recruiting guys, and we need a basketball coach."
No, we didn't. You got to become more progressive, Coach. Not we recruit guys. We recruit all gender now.
Okay. All right. Well, I can just tell you this. When I would talk, I mean, I don't know if I should say, I don't want to get you in trouble. So like, I'm trying to keep you from, suing some school because I said something. So, I used to say, hey, there's 8 women for every guy here. I mean, if don't say it, huh, Coach? You're shaking your head. All right.
We don't talk about
Good.
that.
I'm good.
We have an opportunity to play here. You have an opportunity to make it.
All right. Yeah, that's how I did it. Right.
You have an opportunity to do something different here. Okay?
I forgot about that. Yeah, that's how I did it. That's it. Thanks for reminding me. Anyway, so wait. So you interview, and did you know right away you were going to get it?
No, I don't think I did. Here's a big difference. I had been at state schools. I had been at big state schools my whole life. I went to Texas Tech. I went to grad school at Texas A&M. I was at the University of South Dakota. And this position opened up, and they were starting a program. And like I said, they were going co-ed. And it was an opportunity to be a head coach. And like a lot of young assistant coaches, you're just looking for a break, right? Like you're looking for that opportunity. I get there, and I don't even know, you're just looking for that opportunity. You don't at that point in your career, like, do they have everything I need? You just want the break. I mean, really, you just want the opportunity. I interviewed for the job, and, they ask you questions of how you're going to be as a head coach. And truthfully, whatever you say, you don't actually know. There's no assistant in the world when they're interviewing for that job says, this is how I'm going to be as a head coach. You have no clue. You have no idea what you're going to be like.
Right.
But,
correct.
No, I did not know I was going to get the job until I got the call. It wasn't even until later, actually, after I met you, that you told me that I think there was somebody who played in the NCAA tournament at Wilkes. He had interviewed for that job too. And yeah, I didn't know that. But I got the call, and they told me I got the job. And I went out there, and I didn't know anybody on the East Coast. I'd never been on the East Coast. I'd never been in Baltimore.
Right.
But it turned out to be a good opportunity. And one of the interesting things about a good opportunity is, like, I think most coaches are like, you want these resources, you want this job, you want this, you want that. Well, I can honestly say that this school didn't know what they were getting themselves into, not only in basketball, but in every sport. So we had to learn everything on the fly. But I think in a lot of ways that was actually really, really beneficial to me, as opposed to going to a much more structured place where you were going to do it their way. It was the story I still remember is that we go out and they were like, hey, we got some basketballs for you. They get them out. And I look at them and I go, you realize those are women's basketballs, right? Like they didn't have any men's basketballs. They had never ordered men's basketballs. They had never done any of that. So everything was going to be learned from the ground up. And that was a really eye-opening experience.
Including having to play Wex and guys like that. Like the first year is like, I don't know if there are 5 Akiva poppers, but there's a few Akiva poppers on the squad right there.
Well, I can tell you somebody who turned out to be, invaluable to us in our program, but not necessarily playing. When I got there, I said, I would say that, as the athletic director at Chatham, we have started a lot of sports. That's part of the reason I came here. But the way we do it is we hire a coach a year ahead of time. They recruit for a year to start a program. But Goucher didn't know that. They were like, hey, we got 10 kids coming out for basketball. You're going to get the job. I would tell you that 10 of those kids did not belong in college basketball. Great kids, wonderful people. But I could give you stories of them. We had one player who I'm looking at, and he's running around the court. I'm watching pickup, and I'm like, you can't just stand in the lane there. Like you got to get out of the lane. Like there's 3 seconds. He didn't know what 3 seconds was, so I told him that. And then we go up and down the floor, and he keeps jumping out of the lane on the defensive end. And I go, what are you doing? He said, well, you said I can't stay in the lane for 3 seconds. I go, that's only on the offensive end. You don't have to do it on the defensive end. Right. So this was they told me that we had a transfer for Kentucky. Now, all of you are basketball gurus. You can imagine how exciting that was. They did not say he didn't play at Kentucky. They didn't just say he was a student at Kentucky. That's what they left out. He had never even played high school basketball. So he had just gone to Kentucky because he loves basketball and thought that was a great place to watch it. And then he found out that the school was starting a program and thought, you know what? I can play college basketball. And that's what he did.
There you go. But everything turns when DC shows up, right? Dave
So
Clark,
the first year, and I don't know how we did it, but we actually won 3 games with those guys.
right?
But I spent 80% of my time recruiting, not even coaching. I remember being at practice one day, leaving practice, and literally I had no assistants, none of that, and was just going out recruiting, letting them practice on their own. And I saw a player by the name of David Clark, 6'2", 6'3", maybe 135 pounds.
Right.
And luckily for us that he weighed 135 pounds,
Right.
because that is the only reason he did not get a Division I scholarship.
Well, I mean, there were some like Lehigh was after him and stuff like that, right?
Davidson was after him, and Matt Doherty was the assistant coach there, and Matt Doherty was chasing him. And I remember Matt Doherty saying he couldn't convince his head coach to give him a scholarship,
right,
because he was just too thin. He was 135 pounds. And, you know, he wound up playing for Catonsville and leading his team to the state championship.
Right.
You know, he wound up being about a 6'3" point guard who played bigger than he was.
Way bigger,
and,
yeah.
I mean, I'm just holding my breath down the end of the season, but we got David Clark. And so in our very first recruiting class, we signed a Division III All-American.
Right. First
and
team
then on top of that, David Clark had a buddy, an older buddy,
friend of
who
mine,
he knew from the AAU days, probably
right,
24, 25 at that point. And he said, Coach,
who coached him in AAU?
Yeah,
he like his under 14.
He said, Coach, I have this buddy of mine who's looking for a place to go to school, and we got him, and he had the athletic ability of a Division I guard. So we went from not having any talent to immediately having a backcourt.
Division I backcourt.
Yeah, that by the time they were juniors, we basically had a Division I backcourt.
Yeah,
Division I backcourt at a school that had only played basketball 2 years.
Right, and I think their fourth year. Where's Mike? Where's Mike now? He's coaching. Where's Mike Rhodes coaching? Coach, where's he coaching at?
He just got a job. I mean, he left. He just took a big time job. Where's he at now?
Left VCU. So
he left VCU. He's got a Division I job now. I remember he's
Penn State.
Penn State. So fast forward to DC's Dave's senior year, and you're now 5 years into your program. His junior year, we win and can't go to the tournament, right? Because of
junior year, we won the conference. We won our last 11 in a row, but we didn't have an automatic bid. We had no reputation. And then the next year, and this is when, like, at Sports Illustrated had would list top 10 Division I, 2, and 3. We were number 8 in the country at that point.
Yeah.
And we were a little up and down that year, but we won the conference. And because we had no reputation, we drew Lebanon Valley, the defending national champion, on their floor.
With the defending
and they hadn't lost there in 2 years. They were the number 1 defensive team in the country, allowing 52 points a game.
Yeah.
And we beat them something like 112 to 90.
Yeah.
And the thing I always remembered is
you always remember how great that scouting report was, right?
I do. And this is where Coach Katz had stepped in. He actually knew Gerard, and he knew one of my assistants. And, you know, if you know Coach Katz, you know, he's just a basketball junkie, you know? And he's giving me like scouting reports when I don't even know him. Like he's just walking up to me and he's like, hey, I've been watching the game, and this is what I think. And I'm looking at him like, I don't even know who you are. You know?
Hey, look, hold on. I'm going to stop for 1 second. That was like Gerard's first year. So that's like DC's second year or whatever, right?
Yep.
So then I'm just telling. And so one of the things is we're playing Gallaudet. And Gallaudet is Coach, I'm going to say it. I know it's not politically correct, but hold on.
You said that.
This is on me. It's not on you. This is on me, not on you. But I know we're playing Gallaudet, and they have an absolute monster playing for them. Mike Kent was a Division I player. He was, I see him every few, you know, he coaches at a team in Maryland. I talk to him a lot. Mike was awesome. And Coach, I'm just talking to his assistant, and then Coach comes by and he says, well, they got this kid. I said, well, well, do they play man to man? And coach is like, yeah, they play man to man. I said, well, why don't you just back screen them? Because it's Gallaudet. And they can't communicate on the back screen because they're hearing impaired. And coach looked at me and goes, you want to, coach, I'm going to quote you here. So at the time, there was no such thing as hearing impaired. He goes, are you telling me to back screen the deaf? And I'm like, yeah, back screen the deaf. And he looks at this and he goes, what the hell did you bring? What is it? And guess what we did? We back screened the deaf. That's what's up. And so, sorry, coach. Sorry. So now I interrupted you. You can talk about
going back to that Gallaudet game, just to give you an idea how good Mike Kent was. We played him in the playoffs that year. The gym is packed. We have a great crowd. People are really supporting us. And Mike Kent gets a dunk that is so it's a Division I dunk in a Division III game. Then he gets another one. Like, we're beating him, but he keeps dunking on us. And after a while, my crowd is giving him a standing ovation every time he dunks on us, right? Like, we're winning the game, and the crowd is still like, oh, that's just awesome. Mike Kent is putting on like a dunk show on us. And I'm like, we win the game because he doesn't have enough support around him. But
we back screened all night, by the way, just saying.
He was just something else.
He was great.
Going on, we win the league. We go to Lebanon Valley. They're much bigger than us. They have great defense, but we're running up and down the floor. I mean, we're getting up and down the floor. They can't guard David. They go into a complete panic. I mean, just complete panic. Their coach starts calling timeouts. Right. I'm sitting next to my assistant. They call 4 times. That's when you used to have 5 timeouts in a game.
In the first half.
We're up by 20 by halftime, and they call 4 timeouts in the first half. Right. They have 1 timeout left. 3 minutes into the second half, we score like the first 6 points of the second half. They call timeout, and my assistant goes, they're out of timeouts with, that much time left. The game was over. The game was over with, 15 minutes left to go in the second half. And I will tell you that most people that follow Division III basketball will tell you that is the biggest upset in NCAA Division III history.
No question about it, because he's a defending national champion and he's a defending player of the year. And I remember walking up to Gerard and saying, dude, I don't care what happens. The first 2 shots he shoots, you need to just throw them. Just throw them. Let him know you're going to be here all night. And he throws the first one up in the crowd. He threw the next one on the baseline, and Mike was like shot for the night. And I believe we went to a press conference because were you first or next or something? We went to his press conference and he was crying, saying like, that's the best defender I've ever played against him. Remember that? He was crying. Like it was the biggest upset. And you could look it up, Pop. I'm not sure there was another one because we were nobody. I think we had 11 losses, right? Didn't we have like 11 losses?
Yeah.
And they had 1.
Yeah. Gerard, the guy that guarded him, is the one I told you he was a Division I athlete. If there was anything that was probably a weakness for him is that he would rise to the occasion. Like the better player he played, the better he played. But he didn't always bring that every day, maybe against other kids who weren't as good. But when you told him you're going to guard the number 1 player, the number 1 guard in the country, the player of the year, man, that was just, that was, that's what he lived for. That's what he lived for.
Shrugged his shoulders and got 30 on the other end too. He was like, he's not going to be able to guard me. And then David was awesome. So we go, I think it was it 48 teams to 32 or I forgot what it was. And was it 48 to 24? Yeah. I forgot what it was. It went to 48 to 32 because there were buys or something. Maybe it was 64 at that point. I don't even remember. And then because of David, we consistently get guys who can play. Yep. Right. I mean, it was one great class after another. My question for you is, now I'm going to skip a bit. So how long are you at Goucher? 30 years?
No, it was a little bit less than that. It was like 24, something like that.
Felt like 30 to me, but now, hold on. I've told these guys before, and I've had other coaches on here. I'm just going to reiterate it for kids and the people who are listening. People have no idea what this means in their life. like we beat one, we'd have to wait for downstairs forever because he was still in. But two, we get up in the office either that day or the next day, and it was, why did we recruit that guy? Why was this guy? This guy can't guard nobody. This guy, usually after the games, he was at his best. This guy can't guard nobody. This guy can't guard nobody. One time, we go to, we're changing our route. We're going to get up tempo and everything. I'm not going to let you forget this. So I'm going to say it. We're going to Penn State Barron. And they're really good. Okay. And we lose triple overtime or something. We lost in triple
great
overtime.
Game. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like in 98, 96 or something. We lose in triple overtime. We go downstairs. I'm really happy because I think we're going to be great. Second, third game of the year. We're going to be great. He is so mad. He said, that team we lost to stinks. They won't win 10 games. That team, he going off on me like, Coach, why do you think scouting report that? They're terrible. Every day for the rest of the year when they were going 24, 25-0, I would send him little clippings of how great Penn State Barron was. After like 20-0, he goes, yeah, I might have been wrong about that. 20-0, he goes, I might have been wrong about that. But the cool part is that you can, tell me if I'm wrong about this, Coach, you can hire assistants that if, look, it's an emotional thing because we're all invested in players. We recruit them. It's our program. It's not just, and Coach is like, this is my program. And I'm kind of like, this is our program. Like I'm working here too. And so we would argue or whatever. The key to me, you tell me if I'm wrong, if to be a great assistant, you won't have to be loyal, as I've said on this podcast before. More importantly, you better have a thick skin. And the ones who don't, tell me if I'm wrong, they don't really have relationships with you anymore, right? Because
I think to be a good assistant and to be a good head coach, you gotta have, it's an emotional game, and there's a lot of things that can go on, and you can get mad, like we said that. And having an assistant that'll check you, or an assistant that'll disagree with you and that sees that, it's so easy as a coach to get tunnel vision, to think this is the right way, this is the only way.
Right.
And that you can look, and it's in everything. It's in recruiting, it's in coaching, it's in the moments of the decisions. And I think you have to be reflective as a head coach and look and say, okay, I made a mistake. Like, you can't just say the players made the mistake. You got to look back and you got to be like, why did we sub there? Why did I sub there? And having an assistant that'll tell you, like, why did you sub there? And sometimes just admitting, I made a mistake. You made a mistake. How else are you going to learn something? How else? If you don't think you ever made a mistake, you're never going to change anything. You're just never going to change anything.
Correct. Yeah. And I think the reason we still talk is because you weren't afraid to tell it to me. And being that I was a head coach before, I was not afraid to tell you. But I enjoyed working there, and I enjoyed working for you, even though, half the time we were both jerks. But the fact is, we come to practice the next day, it was over. Or by the time we leave that night, and sometimes, it's just, Coach, I'm leaving. I'm whatever. And we'll come back in the morning, and he's got his whatever 7-Eleven big gulp or something, and it's over, and there's things like, sometimes like you have to talk to your boss and convince him of something. Like if you remember, F&M kept using that big guy to reverse it, and Searles had no right hand. And I'm like, Coach, we got to send him to you. I had like 5 tapes you gave me. Go watch. I said, Coach, we got to send him to his right hand. He's like, well, are you an idiot? He's a right hander. I say he is, but he can't play that. And we busted them up pretty good, so much so that he stopped playing that, right? Glenn stopped playing us because they were top every year.
To give you an idea, Glenn Robinson won like 1,000 games, if you know anything, F&M. And I think we were one of the few Mid-Atlantic teams that he had a losing record against.
Correct.
And Coach Katz was instrumental. Anybody thinks that they used to have a big kid that would get around the top of the key, they'd give him the ball, and he can't shoot at all. So the natural on anyone is to drop off on him and clog up the lane, right? But Coach Katz came to me and said, hey, instead of doing that, let's get all up in him. And I'm like, why are we going to get up all? He can't shoot, he can't dribble.
So
He goes,
what?
but because he's killing us with passing. He was killing everybody with passing. So people,
Right, it's great. It's great.
F&M had great cutting, they had great movement off the ball. So they would have 4 guys cutting, and they would get layups, or they get whatever they want. But what we did, and this was Coach Kratz's credit, we just jumped up on the ball, and we told our post guy to just pressure the heck out of him. And he wasn't used to that, so it really forced them out of their offense.
And it always did. And then they had the Searles kid in the backcourt who couldn't go to his right hand. And we kind of beat them. And I believe the only time we lost in 4 years stretch at that top 5 is we came back from Barbados, and in a brilliant scheduling move by whoever scheduled, we played them first and Village Julie second after the Barbados trip. Kind of other time I go, Coach, is there a reason that we're playing these guys after we're drunk and not those guys after we're drunk? But the best part was to be able to do that and just, okay, don't worry, we got them anyway, right? So now tell me, you go to done at Goucher, won a bunch of NBA tournaments, won conference championships. You go to Chatham. How different is it to build a basketball program from scratch and to revive, so to speak? Was it at Chatham? What was the deal over there?
Well, it was almost the same thing in a lot of ways. It was an all-female school, and they were going all gender. And they wanted to build up their athletic program. I think one of the reasons I got hired was I had done that in basketball, and now they were going to do it in all sports, and it was an opportunity for me. And one of the neat things is that our men's basketball program won the conference in 5 years. Like, this was the first time, first NCAA team. Our women's soccer team has won 2 of the last 3. We started hockey. This is a hockey city. Pittsburgh's a hockey city. But in addition to our men's team being real good, our women's teams have really taken off. Like, they built up the whole athletic department. So it's been exciting. It's been fun. I think I've used some of the experiences to help coaches. Been like, hey, this is where we got to get to. So I think all of that has been really good. I also think that we took, dropping back to the Goucher years, Coach Katz is just making fun of the scheduling. And I told you, I was at University of South Dakota at Texas A&M at that. I didn't know anything about Division III, not a thing. And I get this school that calls me from the Midwest, and they're like, hey, we're going to be here for the holidays. We'd like to play you. And I go, sure, yeah, why not? Never heard of you. How good can you possibly be? So I scheduled them. And then my assistant comes up to me. He goes, you know that team Worcester we're playing? I go, yeah. He goes, they're number 5 in the country, right? And I go, really? Like, I had no idea who they were. And we actually beat them. And Coach Katz gave me a really good scouting report on one of those on that team too. But yeah, we scheduled the number 5 team on the country because I didn't know they were any good. Like, so
but here's my and this is what I told Coach. Like, we know we're in Barbados. We know what we're going to do in Barbados. We got a bunch of college kids. They like to do what college kids like to do. And 2 days later, we got to play number 1 in the country. Just not, and instead of Village Julie, what's Village Julie now? Stevenson? Instead of Stevenson, just like could we not have, but you know what? You say that, but then you're like, let's beat them anyway. Let's see if we can, stay sober and beat them anyway.
The players didn't know I made a mistake because you immediately changed that story into, we're playing the number 5 team in the country. We're not scared of them at all. That's why we played them. That's why we scheduled them, because I believe in you guys. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. That's why I scheduled.
Yeah, you go down the locker room, and we're standing outside the locker room. Coach is kind of like, what? We're playing who? Like, that's what happened a lot. He'd be like, what? Man, they're good. Go, yeah, but and he's right. Like that is exactly what you say as a coach. You kind of go like, hey, we're regardless of what it is, because there's a part of you in every competitor that wants to beat the number 5 team in the country. So you got to now forget the fact that you didn't know they were 5 and go ahead and convince your guys that we're going to beat number 5. And that, I mean, there was tell me how this started. In probably 15 years, maybe 20, I've never seen you watch a free throw. Could you explain that?
Actually, the first couple of years, again, our first couple of years, we weren't very good. And, you should make free throws, right? Like, you're a basketball player, you should make free throws.
Right.
And we had David Clark and we had Gerard Garlick, and we had a lot of guys who worked hard around them. They weren't exactly the greatest players. They had their own weaknesses. And we were missing free throws. And I was getting madder and madder. But, in the middle of a game, yelling at a guy for missing a free throw is not going to get you anywhere. Like, you just don't do that. Like, you just can't do that.
Right.
So this one guy goes up who's now missed like 5 in a row. And I'm like, in my head, I'm so sick of watching this. I don't want to watch this anymore. So I turn my head, and doesn't he make the next 4 in a row? And because the other team is fouling him on purpose now. And I'm like, I don't know, I got superstitious. So then he made 4 in a row. So I turned around and I didn't look at free throws. And I didn't look at free throws again for the next 20 years. Anytime a free throw was shot, I just looked away and let him shoot it. I'm like,
here's the thing.
Nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, Pop, you don't understand. You're in the middle of having a debate. Should we play this guy? Should we play that? He gets fouled. Coach gets up, walks down the end of the bench. He's like, get water. Like nobody. And then sometimes he's just standing here like this, in his suit jacket. I'd be like, dude, just come on. And then he'll come back and say, why'd he miss those? Well, I don't know why he missed those. You could have watched it. It's not like you weren't in the building. You know what I mean? So it was just something.
That's why we did. Funny, the last couple of years, the next couple of years, we got better players. You're making free throws. We're a pretty good free throw shooting team. But I'm like, I think it also got to a point where, like, hey, there's nothing you can do as a coach when you get to the free throw line in a big shot. This is it. Like, there's no coaching. There's not. They're either going to make it or they're not. And it's, it's completely out of your hands. And I think there was that part of me that was like, I'm not going to look at this. Like,
I mean, it's darn near. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that. So in one way, Coach is really unique. Coach, I know you got to go in a minute, but I don't want to get you in trouble, okay? Because I know how politically correct you are and all that, and how I'm anti. But what's the difference in the kids you started to recruit in the 90s and the kids at the end of your time as a head coach you were recruiting in the 2010 era? And do you see something that's similar or different from that to that?
Well, I think for everybody recruiting, I think the game hasn't changed all that much. I think what has changed is we have AAU basketball now. We're not as the game is in high school. When we first started recruiting, you would recruit the high schools. You recruit the high school. You talk to high school coaches. Right. So kids would develop from like middle school up to their senior year, and in one sense, players are much better in this because they're playing a lot more. So that just makes you better. But what's also happening is that kids when they're not happy with something, they don't fight their way through it. If you're on the JV team or you're on the freshman team, you have to work to get to the varsity team. That used to be the philosophy.
Right.
But now it's like, well, I'm not getting playing time on this AAU team. I'm just going to go to that AAU team. Or I don't get the ball enough here. I'm just going to go there. So I think there is a point now where kids don't fight through it. When my first 10 years in coaching, we got David Clark. And I told you, he was 135 pounds. By the time you saw him as a junior, everybody was like, that's a Division I guard. Like, it's a Division I guard. But he didn't even think about transferring. Like, nobody did that at that point. If that same situation happens now, he's probably gone, like that kind of situation. So I think that there was a little more grit in those kids to fight their way through things. Bad days were where I think now a lot of times that's just not the philosophy of players. And that's anywhere you go, Division III, II, or I, you see it all the time. It was, go look up the Division II. I think it was IUP in Division II last year was something like 32-4, something like that. And they had 9 guys leave their program, either because they're moving to Division I or they're not getting playing, that kind of thing. So I think coaches now have to coach almost a one and done philosophy. Like, you're not developing guys as much. You're just playing for this year. where you can develop, where we used to develop players much more.
Right.
And I think that changes it. I mean, that really does change it, you know?
In a sense, does it minimize college basketball a little bit, or what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of cheapen the game a little bit because you don't have the same things where you could grow a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I think that from anywhere, I think that not only from within the program, but just overall program, I think even the fans and stuff, you'd follow players and you'd see them develop, and you'd see them, you'd form a relationship with them, even if it's just fan to that. So, you know, all of a sudden, and it's everywhere. It's not just at small schools. Like Kansas has 10 new players every year now, and they're still Kansas, and they're still a great program, and they're still well coached. But I don't know that there's that same connection. I mean, I handed to Krzyzewski at Duke, because I think that one of the things I was always very impressed with them is they won in so many different styles. They won playing up tempo. They won, they had to slow down the game. They won by developing players year after year, and they won by playing one and dones. But I think that real bond between Duke and their fans was developed during those times of Jay Williams and Leitner and all them, when they would see people. That was the people. Remember, Duke got destroyed by UNLV back then, but then they came back and won the title a year later, and people really followed that. That was their team. They took the heartache and they took the victory with it. That doesn't happen anymore like that. Like, it's just 11 new players. It's still Kentucky on the front of the jersey, or Duke, or whoever. But I think it does take a little bit away from it.
And how do you and in that case, how do you think the game's been affected by it? You think it's like I believe that the game's kind of been dummied down a little bit, so to speak. In other words, we're all just going ball screen because it's the easiest thing to do. And
I mean, you have to. You know, when you're coaching someone for 4 years, and you develop, and your offense, there's a little bit more of cohesion that you can develop that. But when you're coaching for 1 year, which is what you're doing, I'm coaching this team, these 11 players for this year. Well, yeah, you're gonna simplify things because you want to make it easy, because you're not thinking this point guard, by the time he's a junior, will have all of these skills, so I'm gonna develop him. All you're thinking is, how are we going to be our best basketball this year? That's it, because he might be gone after this year. So you're simplifying things. You're not developing quite as much, and I think you're seeing that. And it's really special when you get, you know, that's why for a while the mid-majors have been able to play with the other schools, because the mid-majors had seniors.
Right.
Although even that's leaving now because they can transfer out as soon as they get good enough. But that's why you saw that, you know?
Is the portal, has that just been lousy for college basketball and college football?
I think it's been lousy for college sports. Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to what we say. I mean, it's actually, we say it's lousy for college sports, and we say it's lousy, but in a lot of ways, it's also not good for student athletes. In some cases, student athletes should transfer. There's a reason for it, and there's no doubt about it. But in some cases, students make bad decisions. Like they make, like we've all done, you make a decision in the heat of the moment, and you look back at it and say, you know, I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably shouldn't have done that.
I heard someone say today, what you look like when you're born is your parents. What you look like when you die is your decisions. And there's some hard truth to that.
Yeah. I get that.
A very interesting thought. I wanted to kind of close up on this. These guys, both Popper's obviously become a star now, so he's far eclipsed either one of us. And he was running YU's television, you know, the online Max Live or whatever. So I used to bring Donnie and my kids, he would always come to Goucher. So you actually were on the committee COVID year. Well, first I want to take you back. Donnie was a freshman, and we were playing NYU, and we beat NYU. And the next day you called me and said, there is not one day on this earth that the headline should ever read Yeshiva, Yeshiva beats NYU, because NYU was NYU, right? And we're just like Yeshiva. And I said, well, Donnie's pretty tough, and the kids he's going to school with pretty tough. So you're on the committee. Are you willing to share this part of it?
I was on the committee. I was on the NCAA basketball committee, and now I'm on the overall championship committee. But I was there when Yeshiva and Coach Katz and me would talk, and you heard it all. The strength of schedule, like all of that stuff was being discussed, and more people were like, "Are they real? Are they real? Are they real?" And strength of schedule is all that matters at that level. I mean, it really does. And you got the Ohio conference, you got the Wisconsin conference, and their strength of schedule is so strong because there's so many good teams in their league. And Yeshiva didn't have that many good teams in their league. But I'm talking to Coach Katz, and I respect his basketball, and he's telling me, they're the real deal. They're the real deal. And it was going to be really special because I had known Donnie since he was really, just a little kid. And make the tournament, and I had talked to people, and if they had gone to Fort Wayne, it had already been established that I was going to be every committee member gets a team, and I was going to get Yeshiva, and I could, I was going to watch this little kid now leading a team to the Elite Eight, and that was going to be really special. And then, obviously COVID happened, and it just took it out. But even on that day, the person that was the NCAA liaison was at the Johns Hopkins. Right. And we had been talking about Yeshiva, but we were just going with numbers at that point. Now, obviously, I listened to Coach Katz, and I'm getting texts from this game from him. He goes, this Yeshiva team is real. Like, he just keeps texting me. He goes, they're real. And he would keep giving me the score. He'd be like, they're up 8, they're up this, they're up that. Until finally I get the text that says, they're going to win this game. Like, it's just like they're going to win this thing. Yeah. And it was, we were, me and Coach Katz were talking, and we were really looking forward to it. If you get Randolph-Macon was going to be the next opponent. And if you get past that Randolph-Macon game, you're going. And, it was just so unfortunate that whole thing shut everything down. But it was really something special. It was really something special.
As good as they were, Macon, we felt really good about that weekend and the rest moving forward. All 16 teams were really good, but we felt really good from a matchup perspective, from issues that we would have and they would have. We felt really good. And to me, the full circle of it, where Donnie, this little kid, used to be afraid of the gopher. So he would, like, I don't mean to throw you under the bus here, Donnie, but Donnie was like 3 years old, and he understands when the gopher came around.
The games, it didn't, was scared of the mascot. And all of a sudden he's leading a team that had never had that history to that. And it was, I was really, I was rooting for them. I wanted them to do that. You just never imagined what was going to happen. But it was really something special. It was really something special.
That would have been really cool. You gave us more time than you had allotted.
That's okay. That's okay.
And we could have gone. I'm dying to ask you about Chatham.
I hope you guys we didn't bore you with me and Coach Kat's story. So it's like,
no, you kidding me? Hey, Coach, I told them that they could each get a shot at me and ask a question. Are you up for that?
A shot at you?
Yeah, no, they could ask you questions about me.
I still want to know about where all the skeletons are buried.
No, stop that.
Oh, yeah.
Like a legit, like if you have, I told them that they could have, like if there was one guy going to be honest with them about me, it's going to be you. It's going to be you, and probably brutally so. But I told them if they wanted to, they could ask you a question in relation to our relationship or whatever. You have something for it?
So I just have one question, and then Pop can go ahead. Or Pop, if you want to go first.
Coach, I think they're afraid of you like everybody else.
No, I'm ready, Coach.
Go for it.
So AD Trevino, you obviously had a lot of success at the coaching level, and now you're involved in athletics administration. So you oversee the basketball program. How do you really find that balance, seeing that you have coaching pedigree yourself? How do you stay hands off with that, but still try to contribute to the program at the same time?
That's actually a really good question. And I never try to meddle in their coaching. I never, I'm not an athletic director that is a micromanager, and I let all of our programs. Now, obviously, we support, like, our hockey programs have done well, but I'm not going to step into that. I don't know the hockey, so your natural tendency is. But I never really discuss basketball with my basketball coaches unless they bring it up. I never bring up X's and O's. I never bring up substitutions. I literally do the athletic director part of it. How do we support your program? How do we get more resources for your program? What's the best way? How do we get better crowds? How do we do better that? And I think, because if you stop and you think about it, any suggestion I give them is going to put undue pressure on them as a head coach. It's your boss telling you, why are you playing this person, or why are you playing that? That's just going to be tough on them, because if they don't do it and they lose, it's like, if they do it because I said it and it doesn't work out, I mean, it's a no-win position for them. So I try never to do that. I've had one basketball coach come in there, he was frustrated, like a lot of coaches can get. I want to ask you something. And he asked me an X and O question. And you're asking me, right? Like, you're coming to me. I'm not bringing this up to you, that kind of thing. And I answered that question. But that's really the way I do it. And the other reason you do it is because I'm the athletic director of the entire athletic program. If I step into the basketball world, well, there's already a natural tendency that you're going to favor basketball over other sports because you are the basketball coach. So I try not to do that. And what I really do love about being the athlete, I love competition. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? I'll tell you what, last year we had the number 11 squash team in the country. Now, before this started, I couldn't have told you how many people play squash. I couldn't have told you how you kept score for squash. But when you watch, I mean, we probably have our number one player last year was probably number 150 in the world at squash. You're 150 in the world at anything. You're special, right? And you watch that type of competition, and that's one of the things I love about the job. It's the competition, and regardless of the sport. So that's how I try to balance that. But am I proud of our basketball teams? Yeah. Our men's basketball team has won the 2 championships, and I'll tell you guys this, because you follow Division III sports. You can give me credit for this, or you can blame me for this.
I blame
you. Guys know who Dave McHugh is, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, you can blame Goucher College for David McHugh, or you can give him all the credit in the world. So when we were in the league, we don't have the resource to hire a professional announcer. I have a student come up to me and say, hey, I'd like to be the announcer. And we test him out. He's got a good voice. We got him as an announcer. A couple of years later, he gets together with some guy from Catholic, and us and Catholic had a huge rivalry.
Yeah, it was not.
He goes, we're going to start a website. And at that point, we don't even have cell phones. We're like, yeah, I don't care what you do, man. I talked to the Catholic coach, and we're talking. He goes, hey, is one of your students and our students starting a website on D3 basketball? I go, yeah, it's some nonsense about that. Who cares? Like, it's like neither one of us paid a lick of attention to this. And that's how they started division. That's how they started 3-3 hoops. I mean, that is it right there. And you talk about a full circle thing. I go to the Elite 8 when I'm on the national committee, and there's people talking about Dave McHugh, and Dave McHugh's interviewing me, and that's literally how he started. And me and the Catholic coach were like, yeah, I don't care what you do. Like, it's like, that was it. I mean, that was exactly, he was the announcer there. And that's how all that started. So,
yeah, fact. Those are facts. And Pat, I think, is still involved, right? They're both still doing.
And so is McHugh.
And we should have outlawed it because it was Catholic, but I can't say that being a Jew. I'm not allowed to do that. But we should have outlawed it. Catholic, I got from look, the first thing I did every year I got my schedule for Goucher was check when we're going to play Catholic. Because, sometimes, like when you're in a sorority, or what's another thing, or what's the
frat?
Frat. Like when you're in a frat, there's something called Hell Week. Hell Week for us was whenever we play Catholic. So you better strap up, because coach gonna be in a bad mood from the first minute of that week till the end of that week when we're done playing Catholic. Wrong or right, Coach?
Yeah, no, and actually over a 2-year period, we played them 7 times. Two times, and he said, caught them in the CAC playoffs and caught them in the NCAA tournament. We were either 4-3 or 3-4, but I don't think any game was ever decided by more than 5 points. The year they won the national championship, they lost twice to us that year.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the rivalry.
And we should have been.
We once went up to their place. The place is sold out. We start the game down 22-2. And by halftime, we're ahead. Like that was the way that rivalry was. That's the way that rivalry was. Yeah.
It was, but you couldn't even bring up Coach Lonergan's name in front of Coach. I'm assuming now you could still do it. But I'm assuming
not for a while, but yeah, there was quite the rivalry there between the coaches and.
Hey, Coach, can I say this story? You tell me, what's your record against Page? Right? Didn't we just get rid?
We never could beat Roanoke. We never beat them.
So we must have lost, I don't know, 15.
We were like 2-12 against them. We would play them early in the season.
So I walk in the office, and you're not going to be good defensively early in the year, and you're not going to be ready based on what we do. And I say, Coach, why do we keep playing them? And like, they never come to us. We always go out there. I'm like, Coach, why do we keep playing them? He goes, well, he's like my best friend in coaching. I'm like, Coach, if I beat you 12 times in a row, I would be your best friend in coaching. So in typical Coach Massey, he looks at me and goes, yeah, good point.
Yeah, you talk about the assistant head coach, right? I would say that. I didn't argue with you. Be like,
that's true. But we're still going, and we still got to be
go self-reflect. People used to be like, why do you go to Roanoke? And I go, I was born in Texas. I didn't see snow till I was 18 years old. And I'm like, it's getting cold in Baltimore. Let's just go down to Roanoke. The weather's still good. I want to get out of here. Like, it's like, that was it.
A 22-pointer later, we're driving home going, we should have stayed here with the bad weather. But I mean, they always, for some reason, we could be great. And we had years where we were just great. And even if we played them and beat them, we struggled with them.
We would be like 20-4 if we had lost to Roanoke.
And then Roanoke be something like 12-18, or something, 8-20, and Coach, they're just, let's stop playing them, but here's the great part. We would take a trip every year, and it would be like Barbados, or we go down to Miami. And we would always play in the Classic. We never played in the tournament. And so, why don't you want to play in the tournament? He goes, I want to relax, man. I'm going for fun. I want the guys to have a good time. Leave me alone. I'm just going down there. I don't want to worry about winning and having to play somebody we don't got no report on. And but by the way, just FYI, we go to like Florida Atlantic, right? We play that tournament down Florida Atlantic. And everybody's ready to leave. And Coach looks at me and goes, well, you ain't coming back to the hotel. I said, why? Well, somebody got a scout. I'm not doing it. He walks out, leaves. I said, somebody gonna pick me up. He said, you get a cab. You have a credit card. Hey, dude, thanks. That's awesome. That is how my life with Coach Trevino worked. But because I have thick skin, I was able to deal with it. Pop, you got something?
Yeah, well, first of all, just on Roanoke, now your guy Clay Nunley is there.
That's correct.
Yeah, Clay Nunley played on one of our championship teams, and he was one of the hardest workers, smartest kids you ever saw. He wasn't as athletic as some of the other kids we had. And I would have told you, this is the development. This is the grit you're talking about. He didn't play a lick for us his freshman and sophomore year. And he was a starter on a junior and senior year. And while he may not have been our best player, he was integral to what we did. Loved the game. I mean, I see him as a coach. I actually saw him at this year's Final Four with his son at there. And that was actually pretty cool. And he was, he'll tell you stories about it. He came to visit us. We had heard about him, but he was not a top recruit for us. And he will laugh later. He said, Coach, you had forgotten about me. Like, by the time the day the school started, he came up, hey, I'm going to be on the basketball team. And I'm looking at him like, do we recruit him? Like, yeah,
what's your name?
But again, there's that grit that we talk about. I think that a lot of times a lot of the student athletes don't have right now. Clay had that.
But here's the other thing about Clay, Coach, and this is the other thing about what you were saying before. Gerard took him under his wing. So he had upperclassmen to just say, hey, Clay, here's how you do it. Here's how you're going to get better. You want to play for coach, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do this. Ignore him when he says this. Pay attention to him when he says this. You know what I mean? Like, and Clay was kind of nurtured by Gerard and then really turned into this. He's a star now, you know, and that's such a great point about being able to grow within the program. Yep. So that's true. We no one wants to play Clay now. So what else, Bob?
Yeah, very quickly. We hear all your great stories about Coach Katz, but we have to have your worst story about Coach Katz when he made you very mad or something like that.
Coach,
I don't remember. I was actually thinking about this. I don't remember who we were playing, but he gave a scouting report, and his scouting reports were well done. I mean, we really took them to heart. But I remember this clearly. He says, this kid can't shoot. So we decided we're not going to guard him. And he hits a shot on us. And then he hits another one. And then he hits another one. And I'm looking at him. I'm starting to look at him like, I thought you said he couldn't shoot. He was like, he's shooting 11%. And I go, well, he's shooting 100% right now. And I'm getting madder and madder. And the kid keeps shooting and keeps shooting and keeps shooting. I mean, he's having a game of it. Like he's having just, he's unconscious. And I'm blaming Coach Katz, right? I'm blaming Coach Katz. I'm like, you can't scout a game. I don't know why we let you scout.
It's like that. No, dude. You could give him 150 straight ones in a row, and one kid goes off. He's like, in the middle of the game, I don't even know why I let you sit here. Why are you here? Why are you sitting? Don't sit next to me. I'm like, well, you're not sitting down, and I'm not moving. You know what I mean? I'm like, no,
the kid is just hitting shots. But late in the second half, he finally goes cold, and he misses like 2 shots in a row, and then he misses like a third one. But now the kid thinks he can shoot, right? Like because he's been making shots. So he's taking shots, and he's taking shots, and he's missing them. So we're catching up now. We're catching up. We finally catch up, and I turn to him, and I go, yeah, maybe you were right.
Now you know life with Leonard Trevino. It's a 5-minute 5 minutes, you go from heaven to hell. That's how this works. But I'll tell you another one. My kid had played in a game, and we had this referee Lombardo, and he was terrible that day, so I wrote him. And the next night we have him at Goucher, and he calls a 3-second call. He's like, opposite side of floor, half court, and coach is like going on, and I just wave at him. I'm like, you're terrible. He teed me up, and coach turned around and said, what the hell did you say? I said, coach, I just waved my hand at him. So you're not supposed to talk to no ref. You never talk to a referee. You know? So it got real bad. So when I don't know if you remember this, coach, he came up. We won the game. So coach is upstairs, and I waited for him to come up. You remember this? You're such a baby. You're a baby. You should never. We never had him again, right? You should never work another game. I'm gonna make sure you never. And he's like, and I'm all like, and coach, you need to, But when you get teed up working, for coach, it's a bad 5-minute experience. But
I'll give you guys one more. You brought up Clay Nunley, and just give you an idea of what coaching is about. Our junior, senior year, we're good. Like we're now, and it was us and Salisbury that were like the 2 top teams in the league.
Yeah.
And I don't know we were almost 99% a man team, but for whatever reason, I decided against Salisbury. They don't have great shooters, but they had good athletes.
Brilliant decision.
I play zone. I play zone. And Salisbury comes up and hits like 3 threes in a row. I call timeout. Now you got to remember that Clay Nunley is a player's coach. I mean, he's respectful, never says anything, plays hard, dives on the ground for ball, does everything. I call timeout, and I'm mad. And I'm like, can we play some defense? And I'm chewing the players out for not playing defense. All of a sudden, Clay goes, You're the idiot that's playing zone, right?
Can we play man to man? Can we play man to man?
I look at him instead of getting mad because Clay, I look at him and I go, "Yeah, you're right. Go back and play man."
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I just sent him out there to play man, and we go back and win the game. We come back and we win the game. But again, you have to take into context. Clay would never talk back. Like
no, not only that, but even though he wasn't the best player, it was kind of like a little bit of his locker room too. Like
So,
Clay kind of like.
And he was right. I mean, that would honestly, he was right. The same thing I would say. You can overcoach this thing in a hurry.
Working for coach is like living on 3 Mile Island. Like you're gonna have a nuclear meltdown, and then 2 minutes later everything's okay. And then 2 minutes later, one time we bring a kid in off the bench. I mean, this more than once. We bring a kid in off the bench who can shoot, and he pulls a shot. Maybe first time he touches it. I mean, we are 5 minutes into the game. It's a 1-point game. Kid misses a 3. Coach looks at me and goes, "How's he shooting the first time he touched it?" "Well, we did tell him to shoot now, Coach. We did, but he shouldn't." "Coach, what do you mean?" "Well, let him get up and down the floor once." That was life in 3 Mile Island with Coach Trevino. But it was, to me, and then I don't know if you remember this, Coach. The day I stopped, I didn't want to coach him. It's October 15th because you couldn't start earlier. And I'm driving up, and I walk in the gym, and we had preseason meetings and everything, and I was stuck on a beltway. And I walk into practice and look at Coach. And Coach, I'm done. I can't do this for 6 more months. I didn't even want to be on a beltway today. Like that's when it's time to I want to watch my kids play. I felt bad. I couldn't do that anymore. And because my kids were playing and I'm coaching everybody else's children. And I walked in and he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, I can't do it." Like I'd never leave him hanging like that. But it's one of these things, like I felt, as I told him that night, if I can't give you 100% of what you're hiring me for, I can't work. And my heart's not in this right now. I can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and it was bittersweet for us. I understood that. I respected that. And you obviously followed your kids and great career and you were part of that. And we stayed in contact the whole time.
If I know this, if I turned around and say, "Hey, Coach, I'm thinking of coming back." He goes, "All right, we got a game Wednesday." Like that. That's sort of how that would be.
Yeah, if there was any other time, they'll open the invitation with that. And he would always, and I remember Donnie, even after that, like the gym was always available to you guys, and you would have Donnie in there shooting. And, poor
that was
Donnie,
poor Donnie.
I mean, he was down there.
With me.
You're not, you got your shooting finger on the ball too much. You're doing this, you're doing that.
All right.
I mean, Donnie, I'm sure, I don't know what the therapy cost Donnie, but I'm sure they cost him a fortune.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. But here's the greatness about Coach. He walk in the gym, watch Donnie shoot, and they say something to Donnie about me screwing him up. Like that's what it's like to work for 3 Mile Island. So, Coach, you and I have remained friends, and I enjoy talking to you as always. I'm glad other people now can share in our combustible relationship, but the fact that I still have you to turn to is a great comfort to me, and it's something I cherish. So, Pop, did you have something else?
That's it.
Okay.
We'll make sure we got to get Coach on in the future to talk about Chatham.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Thank
Coach,
you.
I'd like to do that. Coach, thanks for joining us. I had such a great time tonight. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And good luck for the upcoming season. And I'm sure we'll talk sometime in a few weeks.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, bro.
Thank you so much, AD Trevino. We appreciate it.
Hey, guys.
So I think the most fascinating thing, and I want to pick your brain on this, Coach, the discrepancy between a recruiter and a basketball coach. Sometimes they're in sync with one another depending on the program. And sometimes you have coaches who are good recruiters, but are not necessarily good coaches, and vice versa. Do you think some universities need to evaluate possibilities of having a real position call? Because I don't think you really see it in the staff. for an athletic program, like head of recruitment for,
Well, no, there's a lot, to be fair, like there's a lot of coaches who have like a recruiting coordinator. Don't know about it because he's just an assistant coach, but his job is the recruiting coordinator. One of the things I didn't get to, we had Ryan Moreland playing for us, and his dad was the vice president of the Wizards. So I was the last guy to find out that we had floors that night, and I got everybody going to recruit, and I'm the only one out recruiting. Everybody went to the Wizards game. So, like it sometimes it gets that way. I mean, a lot of schools have that. A lot of schools have a guy where they don't really rely on him for external. They rely on him to recruit. He's a recruit coordinator. He tells you where to go, when to be there. He sends out all the letters and stuff. It's a big business. And even in Division III, most schools, we're kind of a little unique to what Coach was talking about because our kids some kids have other places to go, but for the most part, you're coming to yeshiva, you're expecting a long-term yeshiva relationship. So, but more recently, we'll see guys transfer. But there is such a thing, and I think the if you get the right guy, you're going to get good success out of it.
Right.
But that is a real thing.
Right. Oh, so I guess it's not really an official title, but what you're saying is it's out there.
Some people have a title of recruiting coordinator, but for the most part, one of the coaches is usually in charge of recruiting. Everybody's in charge of recruiting, if you know what I mean, but one guy kind of coordinates everything. Who's playing where, when to go, what letters got to go out. He talks to whoever's working in your office, whether it's intern or office staff, that kind of thing. But yeshiva is unique because we don't have any of it. But like in most places, especially on the high levels, you have a ton of it.
Right.
So we had a guy we basically used for recruiting at Goucher my last few years there. He's a good guy. Son actually played for us years before that. He's a good guy and he's a great recruiter. So some schools have it, some schools don't.
Pop, you privately messaged me. There was something you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I wanted to discuss Searles a little more because he came up in the F&M conversation.
Yeah. Great
Searles, was he the one who broke his hand or his arm when he was a kid?
Yeah. And I think that was the year Coach had lymphoma. Coach was sick for a while, and I don't know if he wants him. I guess I put it out there. Coach was sick for a while, had to do a little more things for the program. And I think that was the year, Searle's senior year. That dude was a handful. And he couldn't play to his right hand. I saw that his freshman year, and he's a right-handed player who was just awesome to his left. And I always wanted him. I noticed it on film. I remember going to the office and telling Coach about it, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" Just like I said. And then what was great about Coach is that he would just kind of say, "It's your scouting report." We would just game plan, and he'd rely on the game plan. And we beat them 3 out of those 4 years, and then they never played us again. And they were top 5 every year, sometimes 1. And they were Sports Illustrated 1. They were top 5. Street and Smith 1. They were before D3 who played. And maybe at that point it was already up, but it wasn't like it is now. And then we made him play to his right hand. At the end of his senior year, we had played him every year. At the end of the kid must have lost like 10 games in all of college. And he lost 3 of them to Goucher. And I said to him, did you break your right hand? He said, I did. I believe he told me he fell off skate when he was 10 years old. and broke his right hand and said, "You're in the gym all day with your left, weren't you?" He said, "Yeah." I saw that on tape. And he gave me this look, "Well, you saw that on tape?" I said, "Yeah, just something I saw on film." And I saw that on film 9, 10, 11, 12 years later. So sort of the chess match I like to play. And that's a story I share with coaches. I don't really share it in public, but I'm sharing it now. He was a
Just did,
great
coach.
yeah, he was a great player. But just to give you some idea about how you game plan and how you watch film, and not everybody can see things like that. I'm lucky, I guess, that yeah, you have to, you get a premise and then you have to make sure your premise is correct. And at that time it was videotape. We'd be popping in 5, 6, 7 every year. Boom. Make sure I'm right about this. Because beating them was a big deal. You beat them, you could beat anybody on your schedule. And we kind of did. We were good back then. We could play. So yeah, true
Do you
story.
think part of the reason they were a top 5 team is because nobody saw that? Meaning if everyone would have.
Everybody let him go to his left. I never understood why. Like every year we pop it in, and his career highlights are him going to his left. Nobody took it away. Like Coach said, we got up in that ball reversal too. So we kind of, with that big guy, and before I was game planning, we would just let him reverse it to us, and he'd kill people like that. But then once we started game plan, we got up in him like that, and he's throwing that thing all over the gym. He's a great passer if you let him do it. If you don't let him do it, and so I mean, they don't lose a lot, and I never saw Hopkins send him to his left hand. To his right hand, and I never saw Gettysburg do it, and I never saw Washington College do it. Like that whole league, Haverford, Swarthmore, nobody sent him to his right hand. And we just made it. And that's crazy because if you watched our game film, we would send him to his right hand. And we were.
But you should be the film that everyone's watching how to beat him.
That's what I would have done.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I think a lot of people got lost in the ball reversal. And they didn't. No, they got lost in the fact that we pressured their ball on the top, when they reversed it. Because they always did it. Took the big out, they tried to go high-low on it, and we put ball pressure on them. And I think that's what people were paying attention to, and they forgot that the real deal was Searles. Like he's a bad man. He was a really, really good player. He was difficult. He was a difficult player. He was tough. So sometimes you get lucky like that, or you're good at it. I'll let you guys choose whatever. So I think most people didn't see that correct.
Such a buzzkill having to go from this great conversation to babysitting a bunch of adults playing basketball.
Yeah, what can I tell you?
Coach, do we want to plug in our next guest, or we're not there yet?
Not there yet. I'd like to. We'll have Pop do it on Twitter or whatever. But
do you have any sponsors for the program?
Shiva League Pass. And don't forget to subscribe.
See Shiva League Pass.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast channel.
Correct. Thank you.
To be more specific. Yes. All right. I'm not out of the job yet, guys.
Great job, fellas.
Thanks so much. As always, we really appreciate AD Trevino's time. And we'll be back in a few weeks, hopefully. We got a few surprises up our sleeve. Or Coach does. Hopefully. Coach does.
That'll be cool. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
All right. It's a great job tonight.
Thanks, guys. Take care.